How many times are you grabbing a coffee out during the week? How many times are you, eating out during the week? And I say to them, you're going to probably be able, so and then I ask them like how much they spend. And I go, you're going to be able to save yourself money and lose weight and feel better, which is your ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just they don't think about it.
So you sit there and you tell me you can't afford it because it's too expensive as you talk on your $2,000 cell phone, drink your $9 coffee and your $300 pair of shoes, your $100 shirt and your $120 jeans, and walk outside and get into your $70,000 car that you can barely afford every month. That's why it's expensive. The food isn't expensive. It's your stupid habit. Welcome back to the second episode of the Take Back Your Life show, where we are talking about the steps that you can take at home to make your personal transformation journey. So to start a transformation, that first step and that first action is going to occur in the home, and that's the mission of the show, is to give you the tools, strategies, and tips that you need to make that happen. And specifically for today's episode, we're diving into probably one of the most important topics when it comes to starting a transformation program, and that's the obstacles that you face. The obstacles that you face and how you actually overcome them. Everyone has obstacles and challenges that they're going through, but figuring out how do you get around it, how do you overcome it, is a completely different set of tools, set of skills. And in this episode, we're going to break down some of the best strategies that our clients use to get past those obstacles and move closer and closer to their goals every step of the way. I'm joined here with the team at OB Training, and we'll be breaking down all the different strategies together, and you can hear our stories as well, some of the obstacles that we faced in overcoming challenges over the years. So I'll turn it over to one of you guys to jump in on the first place that we see. I guess, Alicia, the first place we see the obstacle.
Start with Alicia. She sees it head on.
Yeah. People will say to me that I've seen you guys on Facebook for 2 years. I've been following you. I drive by the building and I think about pulling in, and I drive by it almost every day. And then all of a sudden I said, so what will bring you in today? It's that point. Like, I saw a picture of myself and I didn't realize it was me, or I got on the scale and I've been lying to myself. I didn't realize where I was. So it's when that one moment hits them and they realize they have to do it. And I honestly say to people when they walk in, I go, you took the first step, and that's the most important step.
When they come in and get started with you, what are some of the things that you hear that are like the challenge, like what was so hard to get them to that first step? They mentioned the challenges or obstacles they're facing. What are some of the big ones?
I think they sometimes lie to themselves. So a woman came in yesterday and she messaged me yesterday and was going to I was going to put her in Monday because I just didn't think she'd come right after work. And she's like, do you have anything today? Anything tomorrow? And I said, I got something today. And she came right in and I said, I could tell you were really anxious to get in here. She goes, if I didn't do it today, I was only going to start talking myself out of it by next week. So I was so happy to hear her say that. I thanked her for saying that and understanding that about herself, and she's just ready to do it. But that, I think, life, and they keep telling themselves, well, I'll do it Monday or next week, or I have this going on. As soon as this ends, as we all know, when something ends, something else is coming around the corner, right? So it's never going to be a great time. It's just about finding time for yourself to do it and making yourself that priority.
I remember saying that all the time in college. I was like, even remember where I was saying like, oh, I can't wait until this. I danced a lot in college, so I couldn't wait till this rehearsal ended so then I could do this other thing that I've been wanting to do. And then every time rehearsal ended, guess what? Something else happened. It was like, I learned then, like, there is never a perfect time for anything to start happening or to become part of, your life, your schedule.
Though, I will tell you, we just had a conversation today. I was in there doing an in-body with one of the members, and she's really sweet, and her sons are little, and they play hockey, and so she was talking to another member who had sharpened her son's skates, and he was talking about how I see people here all the time coming in to work out who I know are busy. They work, they got their kids here at hockey, they got their kids here and there, and they're always doing things, but they find the time to come in. And once people start doing it, they know how important it is, and they understand how it fixes not only the physicality, but this piece, and they say they need it for this. And that's why they continue to find that time for themselves. They don't need to be here all the time, as we all know.
What's what I think you said, like the lie that you tell yourself, I think is probably the biggest obstacle that one faces, is because you give yourself every reason to not do it. And sometimes I think of it like, it's amazing to me how hard someone will argue to not get what they want. Like, if you think of it that way, so if you think about whatever your goal is, or whatever you want to say, make your transformation journey towards, and then look at all the excuses of why you haven't started yet. You're just arguing not to get what you want. And it's crazy to see how many times people will fight to not hit their goal when you think of it that way. Whereas if you just did something, just start something, just move, just make a movement in that direction, you would not have even time to think about all the other things and excuses of why you can't do it. You would just start moving in the direction. And it might not be perfect, but at least you've made a progress forward to the next step. But you got to get over the lie first. You got to stop telling yourself that.
I've been talking about this for the past 2 weeks. It's been just something on my head that I'm just like, I have to keep talking about it. It's just like, just give yourself the opportunity. And like, so many people, like, you say you want this thing, whether it is a transformation, weight loss, if it's a job, and it's like you're talking a lot, but you're not actually just giving yourself an opportunity to try. Like, just show up and see what happens. And yeah, it's not going to be perfect, and it might not maybe go exactly how you planned, but like, it was something moving forward. And it's like, if you can just give yourself that chance and just to see what could possibly happen. But there's so many times that people aren't even they're not even putting themselves in the chance or in the position for that opportunity. So like, nothing's going to happen.
And I think part of that too is that people aren't putting themselves in that position because they think that it's okay to not put themselves first, right? A huge part of the people who specifically come here to OB training are parents, or they're full-time workers who have friends and family who are important to them. They have big hearts. They're giving their all to those important things, family and friends and work, but they don't ever accept that it's okay to put yourself first and to make that time for yourself so that you can come into the gym, so you can start eating healthy, meal prepping. All of that is super important. And I think once you accept that it's okay to put yourself first so that you can give your best to others, then that really can help you overcome that first step, that challenge.
How about for you? Like, any examples that you've done for yourself? Because you're a mom of 3, you work, your husband works full time, like, you guys have busy lives, yet like you talk and preach so much health. So what have you done for you?
I definitely think that it's really hard, but working and seeing other people around me, like our members, putting themselves first and seeing their results has really been really inspirational. So for me, currently, I am not putting time towards working out, but that's because I have like a neck shoulder injury that's been bothering me. So instead of working out, I am taking time to make the steps towards what I need to do so I can make that part of it happen for me. I'm going to a masseuse. I've been seeing Lauren, the PT here. That's time and that's money that I could be spending to me and my family. And I'd rather be doing that, to be honest. But I know that if I want to be the best version of myself, and I really do, then I need to make this happen for me so that I can come in and physically be as strong as I want to be. And I do want to get back on track in that aspect. So physically, that's where I'm at with that. And then I would say, like, meal prepping. You know what? Meal prepping makes the week go by so much easier. And I think once you take like a Saturday or Sunday and make those steps to get your food, meal prep it, put it in the fridge for the week, you're saving yourself actually so much more time during the week. You're not grabbing crappy food on the go when your kid has to be at lacrosse and the other one has to go to karate. You're not taking frozen items out of the freezer, throwing it in the oven, such as, chicken nuggets and French fries. You're pulling fresh vegetables and meat that you prepared off the weekend out of the fridge. You can take it on the go. You can eat at home, for dinner or lunch. You can take it with you to work. So I think that just doing it, no matter how hard it is to get going with it, is really the first step. And once you make that part of your schedule, part of your plan, then that also makes it easier to make it happen for yourself and for your family.
And I think for anyone watching this, if you're telling yourself that you can't or don't have time for meal prep, and depending on when you're seeing this, so we just got done with March Madness recently. If you watched a basketball game, you have time to meal prep. You just decided not to. That's all. Like, I think that's a lot of it, is that people actually have plenty of time to meal prep. They just choose not to.
Yes. And it actually saves you so much more time during the week too. If you go to the grocery store once on the weekend and get your groceries and prep your meals, You don't have to do it again for the rest of the week. You save hours.
And you don't have to take forever. That's the other thing. I'll tell you, I get these big sheet pans. I have the chopped up vegetables because it makes my life easy, and I don't care. I get them all chopped up. I put them on my sheet pans, pop them in the oven, and I'm cleaning my house and doing whatever I have to do while those are cooking. It's done. It's done for the whole week. It's not like I'm sitting there stirring it, watching it. Really, it's no time.
A watched pot never boils.
Exactly.
It's just a decision, and I think actually when we opened the business, I hired a business coach, and one of the first things that the business coach had told me, if Christina hasn't told you, I can be stubborn sometimes, and I was a little resistant to making some changes. And something that he said to me that stuck with me ever since then, and we use this with clients and still use this to myself to this day, is he said, there is someone out there who is less skilled than you, who has exactly what you want, and the only reason that they have it and you don't is because they decided. That's it. So there is someone out there who has the life that you want, that has the body that you want, if that's your thing, the family, that whatever it is that you want in your life. There's someone that has it who doesn't deserve it as much as you, but they just decided to go get it. And that's the only difference. If you can just make that decision, and you have to make the decision multiple times. It can't just be once. You have to make the decision on Sunday where instead of watching whatever TV show, you're going to cook the food. Or instead of going out and drinking all night, you're going to get home early. Like, you make that decision over and over again, but when you make it enough times, you will get exactly what you want.
I was going to say, one of the tools too that I have found to be really useful, and it is something that I find myself using and then forgetting about, but then I get off track, is actually like a journal where you can write out your schedule for the week ahead. That way you know what's going on with like your kids, your husband, your plans for work. And then you can set aside on there a time of a day when you can do your grocery shopping, get your meal prepping done, get your workouts in. I think that's such a big tool that anybody can use, and you can make your own journal. You can purchase one online, you know.
Structure creates freedom.
Yes, it absolutely does.
And now you can be ordering it online and working out and then go pick it up when it's ready.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think Brian did that yesterday.
My grocery delivery had a little bit of substitution in mid-class, but that's okay. But I actually I want to piggyback off of what you said as far as like meal prepping and how, like you mentioned about, you know, setting time aside to do that and not so much like watching TV and all that. There's a medical term for it, and I don't remember what it is exactly, but what I've started doing to help me personally is pairing something that I don't really fully enjoy doing with something I do enjoy doing. So say like, maybe it's my favorite TV show or a podcast. I'll pair that with like meal prepping. So I'll listen to that while I meal prep. Or say it's my favorite TV show. I'll watch that while I'm on the treadmill or while I'm on the bike or something like that. Like I just got like a little mini desk for my stationary bike for that, and I'll like get an hour and a half of work done while I'm on the bike. So that way, like I'm addressing like tasks and whatnot. That way I'm not dreading that meal prep or that obstacle. I can pair it with something that I somewhat enjoy, and you know, you're not so hesitant to take on that, you know, burden essentially.
No, it is. I've been doing that with washing my dishes. I listen to a podcast, and it makes washing the dishes and cleaning up the kitchen at the end of the day so much more enjoyable.
Put a good song on and you're good to go for anything.
Yes.
I was talking to Alicia about this last week about just preparing. Like, I think also people's concept around preparing is it's in a box, and it doesn't need to be. I think we think it needs to look like this thing where we're in the kitchen, slaving over the kitchen over the food, and we have all of our meal prep containers. And there's like, yes, that is one way of doing it, but I think people get stuck on that and think I can't do that, and they don't even try to see other alternatives. And I know Ryan and I we all have personal stuff going on, but like the season of life that we're in right now, whether it's personal stuff going on or just busy season in work, maybe it's tax season, right? And you're going crazy with work. Prepping could still look like ordering your food, like whether it's the grocery store that you did or like we're currently doing, because right now we're putting more focus kind of on business than setting aside time to cook.
You can just like, we're in a shitstorm of life.
But that doesn't mean we're not
meal
preparing.
Prepped every week.
Right, exactly. It doesn't mean that we're not preparing though, but preparing means we went on icon.com and ordered our meals on Sunday so we know that they're delivered on Wednesday. Like, that's still preparing, but I don't always think that people look at it that way because they think I have to meal prep and it has to look like this. Like, if you can just take a step back and think of it on a spectrum of life, because stuff's going to happen, right? Like, it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to be able to meal prep the way that you want to. But if you understand the ebb and flow of how you're able to prep depending upon the season of life, like, that makes a huge difference.
I think another thing that holds people back is going off the meal prep into just another obstacle that comes around what Christina was talking about, because I know the objection that someone watching this is thinking is, well, that's expensive and that costs more money. And what I would challenge you to ask yourself if you're listening to this or watching it is, relative to what? Because price is relative. It's subjective, and it's completely relative to the situation. It's based on perspective. So while you might say that, well, it costs me more money to order meals online versus to go and get fast food or whatever your normal thing is, it possibly is going to cost you less dollars today. But down the road from now, when you're suffering from type 2 diabetes and you have all of these health issues, what cost you more? Like, what was more expensive? You know, just Christine said, we're in a shit show of life. So the other day, my father came out of the emergency room and I had to go to the pharmacy to get prescription medication for him. And there was one medication specifically he needs, but it wasn't covered by insurance yet. They weren't sure if it was covered. And I asked how much it cost out of pocket. And the pharmacist and the other person who was behind the counter were like, well, it's ridiculously expensive. You don't want to do that. I said, okay, well, I'm just curious of what the cost would be. So she looked it up and she said it's going to cost $3,000 for a 30-day supply. And they're both like, well, that's ridiculous. No one's going to do that. It's crazy. And I said, depends. That's relative. Is that a lot of money? Yeah, sure. But is it a lot of money compared to being put in the ER and almost passing away because of the situation that you're in? No. Like, so if you sit there and challenge yourself on the pricing of things, you'll find that things actually aren't that expensive as you think they are. Even with the meal prep. If you did those meals and ordered them through the situation that you're in, maybe it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks, is that worth it versus going backwards 3 months and getting and gaining 20 pounds because you went into stress eating mode and did not do that? Or would it be worth it to spend the extra, let's just say, couple $100 it's going to cost you total over the course of that month or two that you're spending more to have meals prepared for you? Like, I would rather take that expense than deal with the ramifications of not doing that, you know? So I just think that's a huge challenge that people give themselves, is they immediately say, well, it's too expensive for me to change.
You know, too, I think people think it's too expensive, and if you're really thinking about the cost, there's ways to get around that. You know, there's places where your vegetables aren't that expensive, the meats are a little bit less. And honestly, when I talk to people, I'll talk to them about, like, so how many times are you grabbing a coffee out during the week? How many times are you, eating out during the week? And I say to them, you're going to probably be able to, so then I ask them, like, how much they spend. And I go, you're going to be able to save yourself money and lose weight and feel better, which is your ultimate goal. Mm-hmm. And it's just they don't think about it.
So you sit there and you tell me you can't afford it because it's too expensive as you talk on your $2,000 cell phone, drink your $9 coffee and your $300 pair of shoes, your $100 shirt and your $120 jeans, and walk outside and get into your $70,000 car that you can barely afford every month. That's why it's expensive. The food isn't expensive. It's your stupid habit.
The one thing, too, changing it a little bit from food, is another big fear people have is a fear of failure. Like, they're afraid because they've failed so many times before. They failed when they did this program or that program, or I start and I stop and I'm not consistent. But what they don't understand is that they never had the support that we give them here. They never had the tools that we give them there. We almost make it foolproof that they won't fail. All they have to do is show up and let us help them, Well,
it's also, too, like, the things that people have tried have intentionally set them up for failure. But they don't know that, right? Because it's the society and diet culture and blah, 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 blah. Like, they think truly it's going to work, but, like, it literally was never going to, because of the way, if it was restrictive or you didn't have the support system or the guidance, whatever it is. And, like, if you can get yourself in an environment and do something where it's foolproof and it's realistic and it's sustainable.
There you go.
Sustainable is the word.
We're talking about this recently when we were trying to go to the taco place, the psychological fallacy. There's a psychological fallacy that we experience as humans, in that we assume what we experienced in the past will repeat. And we use it to protect ourselves, like animals. Hey, we see lion attacks us. We now know in the future, next time we see lion, it's going to attack us. So when we experience something bad or good, we assume that it's going to be the same, and it couldn't be worse or couldn't be better. And a lot of times when we talk about fitness, is people assume that because I tried this thing, like I tried to get healthy before and I failed, that anything else of attempting to get healthy, I'll fail again because I did before. Without seeing that the route in which you might be taking that change could be completely different from one to the other. But just in our head, we tell ourselves, well, I tried it before and I failed, which means I can't. It's going to fail again. And we just extrapolate this past experience across everything we have experienced prior, and it's not always the case.
I think people too also believe that it's not going to be fun. Like, I think that's a big challenge too, is like, you're going to tell me I can't drink, or I shouldn't go out and have my coffee. I can't have my Starbucks coffee. I look forward to that all the time. Now I can't have alcohol. It's like, no.
Not forever.
No, like, and that's not what we're saying. And you can still make decisions a little bit differently, or like maybe instead of making that decision 80% of the time that you're currently doing that's not helping your health, you just shift, and now, you're only making that decision 20% of the time. It's like, you can still have fun. You can also have fun without alcohol. That's a whole other story.
And they think too, to that point, they think like, well, I don't want to eat the same thing. We just went through this yesterday, Ryan and I, in a presentation. I don't want to eat the same thing over and over, and I get bored, and that's why I didn't do well. You don't have to. It's limitless. Like the nutrition plan, it's good food, and it is sustainable long term. It's not that I got to eat chicken and rice every day, and that's what people think.
Mm-hmm. No, you learn the framework, and you can apply the framework to everything.
Well, and that's why I think we all love this so much, is like, yes, we've talked a lot about nutrition today, but it's way beyond that, right? It's like the ultimate challenges that we're talking about are challenges that come up in your life. We're obviously looking at it through a nutrition and fitness lens, because that's what we do for the transformation, but we only use nutrition and fitness as the vehicle to help you transform. So you have to get more to the bottom line of like, what are these challenges? Where are these struggles in your life that you inevitably are going to get faced with every single day? You're going to get triggered or pissed off or stressed out. Like, so you have to start to make decisions to help you manage those, because they're going to happen. You can't stop that from happening.
Well, and on the other side of it, like we have people all the time who get suspended, whether they're sick or whatever it is, things are going on. This one woman specifically is like, I've got to get back in there. She's like, mentally, I need to be back in there. And her son is away. He just signed up for the service, and he got a first letter from him, and she was reading it, and she was crying the other day, and she's like, I almost didn't come because I was just in a bad way. And she's like, nope, I'm going. I wiped my face. I went in the gym. I worked out, and I felt 100 times better. And those are the things, and that's why they know that feeling. Once they come in here, they understand how it's going to make them feel, and that's why they want to continue to come in here. But they have to just come in and feel that.
Gotta give yourself the opportunity.
There you go.
I know. I was gonna say, I think it comes down to like changing their perspective too, because a lot of people, like, they see a gym membership and it could be too expensive. They could see meal prepping being too expensive, or like prep meals being pre-cooked and mailed to you too expensive. But when you look at it from not so much a purchase, more so an investment, whether it's an investment like in your health and your family's health, like that just speaks volumes of what it can do for you. Like a lot of people just they see the price tag and they all of a sudden assume like that's a purchase I can't afford right now. But like you said, like that little purchase now is going to save you so much headache, heartache, money in the long run. It's crazy.
And to your point, it's going to compound as well.
Yeah.
Like the greatest investment you can make is in yourself.
Yeah.
Every step of the way. So when you compare those, as Brian's talking about, these decisions of membership or food, like that is not actual expense. Like it's an investment in yourself. Shoes, shirts, things that are going to ultimately get thrown away, like that's an expense. You're wasting it. But the thing that you're getting to invest in you, like that's building you. Like that's something we've talked about, like Chris, we just said earlier, kind of like the shitstorm of life. The way you can look at that though is like, and I said this to Alicia yesterday in the car, imagine the story you get to tell. Like it's all part of your story. Like it's like your Rocky fight scene or cut scene where you're training, like we say this in the business world, like you're building armor. Like the crap you're dealing with, you're just building armor for the future. So every time you take that step it's not necessarily you're building armor, but you're investing in building skills. You're building yourself to be more capable and to do more, which is why one of our core values here is forever evolving. You should be forever evolving to something more than what you currently are. It's getting to that next level for yourself.
You were just talking too, I think it was yesterday, about an individual that's going through, I think maybe she was sick or something happened, and you said to her, imagine where you would be, right, if you weren't coming.
She went through a shit storm. She signed up with us, and literally, like, after she signed up with us, like, just things after things after things were just thrown her way. And so we did an assessment, and, you know, she wasn't where she wanted to be, but she was still having progress. And I said to her, I said, where would you have been if you weren't coming and doing that? She goes, mentally, I would have been, you know, throwing myself over a bridge. She goes, and physically, I would have been up 50 or 20 pounds. And I said, so again, this is a great thing. We move on. You have some really good realizations, and now we move on to the next step. So that's the biggest thing, is this understanding, like, if you didn't do it, where you could be too.
I think that's huge, because so many people, you know, sign up for something or start a program or whatever it is with this like expectation of what they want. And then if they don't get there, right, in our case, like if it is weight loss, then they feel like they are a failure. That's like, but where would you be if you didn't do it? You'd be 10 steps backwards. At least right now you're even, or even a step forward than you would have been. So if you actually look at it, you actually won.
And some amazing things, like this individual realizes I'm an emotional eater, and I reward myself even with food. And I said, that's a great awareness. Now we can work on fixing this. Now we got to look at rewarding yourself with something other than food, non-food ways. And we talked more about that. But those things, that may never have happened if she didn't come in and start making these changes for herself.
I always talk about, excuse my language, the cul-de-sac of shit. And what excuse me for my language. And what that is think about, you're walking along life, right? Life's good. Everything's working well for you. You might be in a season of everything's great. And then you hit the trigger, or you hit the stressor, or whatever it is. And generally what happens is you're a stress eater, or you're an emotional eater, right? So any plan that we had that we were going to follow just doesn't happen, because we don't have the tools yet to kind of deal with that emotion or understand that stress. So we, you know, go to the wine, and we crack open a bottle of wine, or we get the fast food, or whatever the vices that you have. And that's why it's called the cul-de-sac of shit, because now you go down this vortex.
Well, like
right?
The weekend hits. As soon as like Friday night or Saturday night hits, then it just start all over again Monday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly what happens, right? You go down this hole. Generally it's on the weekends, and it's never a good place until you finally bottom out at this bottom of the vortex, and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to start Monday again. And Monday rolls around, you're like, yep, I'm going to eat clean, and I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. Like, have you heard this story before? We've all heard it so many times. Yeah. And guess what? You hit Wednesday, and your boss pissed you off, and the same thing happens. It's like you're stuck in this cul-de-sac of shit, this vortex, until you finally start to identify the trigger or the stressor. And then have tools. And if you want to do this exercise, I like people to list out, like, what are you currently doing now when you're stressed, when you have that trigger? What vices is it? Is it alcohol? Is it the food, the fast food? Right. For us, I know we like to have sweets and pizza, chicken riggies. Those are like our food when we're emotional.
4 nights in a row last week.
What was that?
I ate chicken riggies 4 nights in a row last week. But
they are good.
One thing while we're on the soothing the trigger too, this is something I learned recently that I think is a helpful way if you have trouble identifying what your response to the trigger is. Like, if you can't figure out what your thing that you do to comfort yourself, think of what's the action you take that makes you, it's like the response that it gives you is like getting in a warm bath. It's like when you do this thing, maybe it's the glass of wine, maybe it's the sweet, maybe it's the go do something bad online, whatever you're doing is your escape. It makes you feel like it's a soothing feeling, like you're in a warm, like think of it like puts you in that warm bath, and you just feel good, and you just want to sit there because it's safe and it's comfortable. Like, that's the sign of like, okay, I'm doing this to escape. I'm not doing this for me.
And it feels good in that moment, right? Because it's filling that void.
Yeah.
So like the action that you're doing that gives you, as Ryan just said, that like warm bath feeling, it fills the void But inevitably what's going to happen is all the shame, the guilt, the I suck, the frustration, right? All of that. So you get to the bottom of the pit again and you start over. So make a list of those things that you are currently doing, and then literally make another list of basically the exact opposite, like legit opposite of what you're currently doing. And you have to practice it. And luckily, every day, we're generally faced with some sort of stressor that pisses us off or something, right? A trigger. But instead of looking at that as a negative, you can look at it as a really awesome opportunity that you have multiple opportunities to practice that. So now you're faced with that trigger, work on doing the opposite. And it's not going to happen every single time. You might still go down the cul-de-sac of shit 8 out of 10 times, but 2 times you're able to shift and go the opposite trajectory. Eventually, as you continue to practice this, you're going to be able to now 8 out of 10 times shift to a more positive outcome that's going to be more in alignment with what your goals are. And then you get that momentum, right? Because the action leads to momentum. And then you're going to realize how good you feel mentally, physically, emotionally. You're going to be able to have more armor to be better equipped for the stressors that you face. And then stuff becomes a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, it becomes a lot easier to make it part of like your everyday habits and the things that you rely on to make everything work for you.
And you can also catch yourself faster. At least this is my experience. Like, I can catch myself a lot faster now. It's like, again, it's not that it's never going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. But now maybe your binge isn't 3 weeks or 6 months, right? Maybe now it's like a week or like a couple days. And you're also going to feel, personally, like I feel like garbage a lot faster. Like it's such a dynamic shift for me that I don't want to feel that way. So it's easier for me to just get back to like doing the things that I know are going to make me feel better, even if I don't always want to, because I know it's going to help me. I have to mentally handle it, right? I think people compare their journey to like, well, I think I heard someone a couple of weeks ago say something like, she's upset with herself because 5 years ago she used to weigh X and now she's like 20 pounds heavier. She's still down total, but she's comparing from like 5-6 years ago to now. And it's like, if you get caught up in that cul-de-sac of comparing, or a lot of times where people, right, they've been doing well and then the old habits start to creep back in, and it's so difficult for them to start because they're comparing where they are now to where they were. And like, it's a very mentally can be a really challenging thing to get
they're comparing, for instance, maybe like our program, the way we do things, to their experience at a different place and how that worked or didn't work for them. Like, every place is different, every person is different. And I think one of the great things about OB training is that we have different programs. We have different ways to make all of it work for individuals, no matter where you're coming from, what you're currently doing, and where you want to go, what your goals are.
Right, it's not one size fits all.
Yes. And some places, unfortunately, are like that. So if you go to that place that maybe, doesn't offer accountability, doesn't offer any help with nutrition, and there's no coaches, so you're kind of trying to do it on your own, that may not actually be the place for you, especially if you've had a bad experience there. You need to try new places out.
The one thing too, we talked a lot about food and weight loss and transformations. That's what we really do. But the one thing too, in talking to people throughout their transformation program with us, a lot of them say to me immediately, I just feel better. I'm stronger. I'm doing things I haven't done before. So they immediately start to see that, even if the number on the scale isn't different, and their mindset switches, that it's not necessarily about, being what I was 5 years ago or whatever. It's more about being healthy so that I can do the things I want to do and be with my family and live in that moment. And that is such a reward when you hear people have that mindset change,
That's bigger than, in my opinion, that's bigger than the weight loss. And
yeah, because again, if you're losing weight and you're not doing it the right way, then it doesn't matter, because it's going to come back. It's going to find you.
Especially if they come in with the intention of, just saying, yeah, I just want to lose some weight. I'm bigger than I used to be. And then they start to go through the program and go through the motions. And they're like, wow, like, I'm feeling better. I had more energy. I could do this past weekend. My family has said I look amazing. And I've lost a couple of inches. It's not just about the weight on the scale.
What are, how about like some personal challenges that you guys have faced?
DJ Beasting.
You're looking over at me. Well, actually, I was going to touch base on that too, but this kind of rolls all into one. One thing I've always realized, like at an early age, was once you experience how healthy feels, you never want to be unhealthy. Like once you realize, like, you know, your knees don't hurt when you do this activity, or you can breathe and tie your shoes at the same time. Like once you experience those things, like you're less likely to kind of fall off track or kind of off the wagon. I mean, granted, you're going to have, like, you know, your crazy quote unquote cheat days and stuff like that, your sweets or whatever. But once you experience like true health, like feeling good, energized, positive, like someone that's fun to be around, like you never want to go back to the person you may have been at one point where like you're a miserable human being, like you don't like waking up in the morning. Like having that like drastic like flip, like that switch flips of, you know, eating better, you know, moving, exercising regularly, like it's an incredible like euphoric experience. So it's
I think that's one of the problems, is that people don't know what it feels like to feel good. You know, like I was just talking with someone the other day, and they're saying that, you know, I don't feel bad. Like I feel fine. Like, all right, well, like, tell me about your day. And they go through their day and they're listing off some of the events of their day, and I realize, like, that's not normal. Like the indigestion issues and digestive pains and like all these different things they're experiencing. Like, well, yeah, but that's just like, I feel it every day. That's how I feel. Well, that's not normal in itself, but you don't know, like you've been so far removed from feeling good that you don't even know what it looks like. So I think it's really hard for people to a lot of times see that benefit, you know, because they're not sure, like they don't remember what it used to feel like. Alicia and I have been doing our presentations for our corporate transformation, so I've gotten to watch Bobby's story a lot in the last couple days. And if you haven't seen it, it's on our YouTube channel, his interview and talking about his transformation. And he says something in that that I think is really, really powerful, that he's like, I got that feeling back again. I could feel it again, like where I felt good, I felt healthy, I felt athletic, I felt energetic, like I felt like, kind of like a kid, you know, that you could go do anything. Because that's the thing, like even if you're 40 years old, 50 years old, you should still be able to run, jump, crawl, fall, climb. All those things should be possible for you to accomplish. Get yourself to a point where you feel good, and you're going to completely see a difference. Like it's going to be night and day.
Absolutely. I think age is just a number, and what you just said, Ryan, really resonated with me, because somebody that I know had to go and do like a physical test for work. And when he failed it, his words were, I think maybe I'm just getting too old for this. I was like, no, you're just out of shape. Like you are young and you should be able to do all of these things with no problem, you know? Saying that you're too old to do something is just ridiculous. We have older members who come in here and they're lifting weights heavier than things that I do at my age, you know, so.
We just got this yesterday. Yeah, this is coincidental. A lot of these conversations happen to go on this week in here, but we were presenting at one of the companies that we're doing our transformation program at, and a gentleman raised his hand and he asked a question. He's like, I'm really concerned because of my age and I'm going to be older. I don't know how old this gentleman was based on his appearance and I guess his health, the way he looked. He's probably in his 40s. Maybe, you know, it would be a rough idea of his age. And I just laughed. I was like, Alicia's going to destroy that thought in a second.
And I said about the Bill story. I mean, that's just, you know, 71 years old. He had a massive heart attack 2 months before he came in here, and he's doing things he hasn't done in years. So, you know, you're never too old. And Ryan, you're 100% correct. Like, you don't have to feel like crap because you're 40, 50, 60. There's people in their 70s. Remember the individuals we had last year that came in here? I mean, their body fat percent was like 4 or 5%. It's just insane. So again, think about it. You don't have to be like that. And the first thing people will say to me too, this is really great. Like when they come in and they do their first in body with me and assessment after they've been doing the program is, number one, I have more energy. I am more mobile. I can go down in the ground. My shoulder doesn't hurt anymore. This doesn't hurt. Like it's immediately, my knee doesn't hurt. It's like the light switch turned on. Like they never thought it was possible until they actually are feeling it. And
I'm not sure we've ever had anyone come here that says they have these aches and pains, and I don't believe that we've ever had someone that after coming it got worse. They like, now this is a person who's like, you're cleared for medical, like you don't have a major injury, but someone comes in, my knees hurt, I got bad back or bad shoulder. We have never had a situation where they've come to exercise and been coached with our coaches, and the next day they're like, oh, I feel way worse. Like, no, when you start to move, you feel better. And going back to the guy who was in his 40s who couldn't come, the other thing we had coincidentally happen that same time was our one client who's 84 years old. came to the charity workout the week before. So he's like, this guy's saying, I don't know if I could do the workout. Well, we just had a gentleman who's 84 years old come do our workout this past Saturday and did a great job with it. So I think you, sir, most definitely could do that. Like, so don't tell yourself you can't do it, or I don't know if I'm too old for this, because there's other people who are older than you, who have an injury that you don't have, who have an illness that you don't have, and they're doing the thing that you're telling yourself you can't do because they decided that they wanted to do it.
I hope that he changed his mind and that, he overcame.
He signed up. He can.
He's
Okay,
doing
good.
it. He's doing it.
Yeah. It's really sad that he, at that age, because I'm almost in my 40s, it's sad that at that age he feels like he could possibly not come in here and participate in that.
I kind of snapped at him. I said, I'm 55.
Yeah,
I was just come on, stop it.
And I knew she was I knew that she was ready to go, because that was the first time I've ever heard her tell her age out loud. So I knew she was serious.
I just get so frustrated. I'm like, come on, you're gonna feel
because
so
they're
much
not
better.
giving themselves the opportunity.
100%.
They're already off the bat saying they can't.
I want to help them more than they want to help themselves, and that's frustrating.
Mm-hmm. They're accepting their current conditions. I'm 45. I can't really do this. I'm feeling crappy. This is, this person saying that. This is my new, life. This is the way I'm going to be. And this is, no, it doesn't. Not at all.
I was just talking to a client yesterday, and I'm stealing this from Alex Hormozy. He was talking about it through a business sense, but I'm applying it to the health space. Is that look at your current situation, look at your decisions through the lens of an 80-year-old. And I thought that was super powerful, because it's who do you want to be when you're 80, right? Let's take the 84-year-old client that we had. He's literally still downhill skiing, or he's getting to the floor. He just did a 45, it was long, an hour plus workout that we did. Make the decision, because the decisions that you're doing now are going to be the outcome of who you are when you're 80. So if you already put the glasses on of, I'm 80 years old right now, what decisions do I need to make to be that healthy person? It's going to influence the decisions that you're currently making.
And knowing this individual personally, he hired a personal trainer 40 plus years ago and has worked out consistently just 2 to 3 days a week for 40 plus years. And that's why at 84 he can still travel around the world skiing in literally skiing in different countries and doing all these things that 40-year-olds would say they couldn't do because they're out of shape, not because they're too old.
That brings up a point too, just of I feel like there's so many times, you've gotten this a lot, where people have been oh, well, you've always been in shape, or you've always had a six-pack. I know you said this too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and it's I don't think people realize how consistent over time we've been in order to get to the goal and then to maintain it, right? And to not be knocked back as far as maybe we were when we originally started. I think maybe you can speak to this more, perhaps with your just experience in your own transformation.
I had that conversation a lot of times in the last probably 10 or 15 years. I mean, I had my own yo-yos, ups and downs and stuff like that. But as far as say you're in peak shape of your life in that current moment, people are under the assumption that you were born that way. You didn't put any work, or you were blessed with, X, Y, and Z. And I am here to tell you that is not the case. I mean, at least in my experience, it's not the case. My biggest culprit, or my biggest thing that gets inside my head when it comes down to fitness or routines and stuff, is I'm all or nothing. So if I ever deviate or step off, if I'm not 100%, something like that becomes my biggest hardship essentially. So if I have that cheat meal might lead to 1, 2, or 3, and it's just hard for me to come back around to that. And those things right there, if I put in X amount of hours in the gym and have that one meal, it's really hard to sustain when I fall off. So if I have one bad day, that one bad day is easily turned into 7, 10, so on.
Yeah, and then that's definitely not true about the you just have great genetics, or you've always been like that. Because that was always something people would ask me, especially when I was training athletes. The kids would be well, how do I get muscles like you, or how do I that? And I would give them the answer that nobody ever likes this answer, which is why I like to give it, is because no one's going to do it. Is that, all right, so we go, and for the next 20 years, I would like you to work out every single day and never miss more than 7 days in a row of working out. And do the same thing for your food. Only have, your 80-20 rule, and do that for 20 years, and then you'll have what I have. There you go.
And really, how can it be bad genetics when you look back in history at people and their forms and obesity, that was not around years and years ago. You know, like our family members from distant generations were not all obese. So like that is no freaking excuse.
I posted a picture like a little under a week ago about a gym class in the 1950s, and it was just all like these crazy athletes. And this is like a high school gym class, like climbing walls and like what they used to do like back, 50, 60, 70 years ago. And I don't know, I can't speak to our gym class now, but I know 15, 20 years ago, as long as you changed into a new set of clothes, you passed. Like you didn't have to do a whole lot. As long as you were in gym clothes, you were good to go. Like our level of expectation as a society is totally like shifted.
Oh yeah, you look at all military services; they're dropping all of the requirements.
Yeah, see,
So like law enforcement, they're dropping the requirement
because no one meets them.
the physical fitness requirements because they can't get people to meet it.
Yeah,
I am shocked that there's no, you'll know more about this. There's no like requirements after you pass, like as a police officer.
Yeah,
like,
no, you don't have to maintain any
As
health
far as I
standard.
know.
that's
No.
mind blowing.
Yeah.
It's like a mall cop. Like, you're gonna chase after me?
I think it was in like around 2010, 2011 maybe. There was a point where I actually tried out for the NYPD, and I did the physical and psychological exam and all that stuff. Thank God I didn't get called. But I did the physical aspect of it, which was like this little course inside of a gymnasium. It was in Brooklyn, I believe. And I realized everybody around me, like I wasn't in really good shape either, but it was to the point, it was like maybe a 5 or 6 minute course. And I had to wait for the person in front of me, and they time you. So obviously my time couldn't be that great because I had to wait for the person in front of me. Just to give you an idea, like the status and the state of like the health of people like that were going into that program. Like it was like climbing a 6-foot fence and walking up some stairs and dragging a dummy and stuff like that, which I don't find to be too strenuous. But if you're putting like your life in someone's hands that's in that position, you'd want them to be able to do those basic things. And I was like literally standing, waiting for someone to complete those objectives so I could like progress further throughout that course.
And that just leads to, our whole mission is like, we truly want to just create better humans. Like, we need just better humans in this world that are happier, that are healthier, that are strong, like everything, right? Because think about how many people, I call it the zombie apocalypse. Like, people think the zombie apocalypse is coming. I'm like, no, we're like living in it currently, right? Because there's so many people that just don't feel good, that are on medication, maybe to excess, or constantly in the brain fog because of what they're putting in their body food wise and not moving. Like, we just need better people,
And better principles too.
better standards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everything. And also understanding that like it doesn't have to be this way. Like, I feel like that's what so many times people get stuck in is, oh, I'm just getting older, this is how it's going to be. It's like, yes, obviously as we age things do decline, but you don't have to let it like take over. At least do something to try to like prevent things from happening.
Well, like you said, back in the day, you look back at your ancestors, they were not overweight. They didn't eat all this processed stuff. And now the sad part of it is our children are the highest percentage in obesity in this entire country. That's so sad. And why? Because of what we have done, right? The fast foods, the processed foods, the busy lifestyle, the mac and cheese for dinner or whatever it is, just because it's busy. And I tell people all the time, and they don't really believe me at first, when you come in and you start changing your whole family will change. And it does. All of a sudden people are coming in and going, oh, my son ate my yogurt and ate this, and I didn't have any of my food I made, and my husband's eating my stuff, and that, okay, that's a problem we can fix. How are we going to fix this? Make more.
Buy more yogurt. Yeah.
We talk about this all the time because we hear this a lot from people come in. I just want to get my insert relative. I want to get my mom. I want to get my husband. I want to get my kid to do this or to do whatever it is. In the business world, same thing. I want to get my employees to do things. You don't get anyone to do anything. Lead them there. Show them there. Like, if you're a parent and you have kids that you would like to become healthier, show them. They will follow you. Like, give them a reason to follow you and look up to you and want to be like you, because they already do inherently. So show them the path.
Yep, we are their role models. That's what I was going to say just a second ago, is we need more people to step up to be role models, because whether you like it or not, our children and even people around us, are being watched. So like, even when I'm at work and I see Christina and Ryan eating their healthy meals, like, that is mentally inspiring me, you know, and it will help me to make a better decision. So whether you know it or not, you're being watched, and your actions will affect people around you, and especially your children, obviously.
You always tell me about your kids and your daughter who's looking at the nutrition labels and and she's like, well, where did this come from? Like, you know, she's learning what they're learning. I do believe, unfortunately, not to go too off topic, but you have to get, I think, unfortunately, where we're going as a society in terms of our medical and our healthcare systems and let's just say pharmaceuticals, you need to become your own advocate.
Oh my God, freaking
you need to, like, you have to be looking out for your own health. You cannot expect and just wait around for a company to heal you, whether that be a pharmaceutical company, a medical company, a doctor, any of those things. Like, there has to be some due diligence on your part to basically give yourself a chance.
I think that's our next podcast, because we could easily go off on a whole conversation with that.
Write that down.
Next podcast, fuck the medical system.
Yes.
I'm serious too. We're gonna call it that. Get all sorts of Facebook hatred and all that stuff. As we start to wrap up today, we got a few more minutes left for today's show. What are some closing thoughts that you guys have on just overcoming obstacles, challenges? I know one of the things, which I think we talked about a little bit with Brian, about like the cost of getting lean and understanding what really goes into a health, like being healthy, in the different levels of that. I think it's important for other people to understand. I don't know if Christina, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I stole this from Precision Nutrition, the cost of getting lean, but I think it's really a big factor of why people do or do not get the results and then keep the results. So I like to think of it as like frequencies, right? Like if you're traveling at this frequency and something else is traveling here, like you're never gonna meet, right? You're like keep missing each other. But if you actually finally get on the same wavelength, you'll finally meet and it'll work. That happens with people's expectations. Like they come in and they might say, you know, I want to lose X, Y, and Z, or bring this % body fat, or whatever it is. But then you look at their lifestyle and they refuse to make any sort of expectation, changes in their life, right? Like maybe they go out very frequently and party or something like that, and they refuse to do that, or they don't want to prep. Like they're so stubborn in their ways of giving themselves the opportunity to change. Like you're never going to get to the goal. It's never going to happen. So something has to happen that you have to either sacrifice to some degree to get to your desired outcome. And the sacrifice depends upon how drastic you want it to be, right? You think of, to make an extreme example, like you think of a bikini competitor that's going on stage. They're like 4 to 10% body fat. They are counting every single macro. They've restricted food groups. They
sleep 9 hours a night. They train 7 days a week.
Yeah, like they're drinking their water. They're not going out. It's not fun. They really don't feel good. Like, and that's what it takes to get to that level. That's like, you just have to, again, that's an extreme example, but you just have to look at your current lifestyle factors. What are you willing to sacrifice and have some wiggle room to match what the desired goal is? And when you have those two in alignment, you can get to the goal and you can sustain it.
I have a way to bring this actually back to the beginning. Is it actually sacrifice, or is it just acceptance of reality? Is it you're accepting what is required, like the reality of what's required to get to your goal, and then accepting the reality of what you're currently doing and understanding that it's not what is required. Not necessarily you're not sacrificing, you just need to accept that you're not doing what's required to get there. But I think it's really important for people to understand what that actually is, and like using the figure competitor, like the six-pack. I want to have a six-pack. When you think about the figure competitors as an example of someone who has a six-pack, and you look at what they're doing, you might find you actually don't want to do that, which is okay. It is that now you're changing a reality of, I don't want to do this, and therefore I'm okay with not having that. But if you want to have that, the only way to get it is to accept that you must do this. So I think, like, I know it's a small shift, but it changes the mindset from, you're not sacrificing anything. You're just accepting your goal and you're moving towards it. You don't have to sacrifice. You just accept, this is what I want. I'm going to go get it. And if you don't want to make those changes, then you just accept, I don't want this anymore.
I think that's a beautiful thing, because then it also takes away a lot of the frustration, right? Because then when people aren't getting the result that they have in their head, you're like, okay, well, here's what you do need to do to get to that result. And they're like, oh, I don't want to do it. Okay, well, cool. That's a good thing. That's good to know. You know, because then you can still have your life balance, if you will, right? Where you can still go out and have a good time, enjoy yourself, but you're still getting to your goals.
Here's a big thing too that people don't really realize when they walk in a door to make these changes is you don't know until you start to feel it. And when you start to feel it and you start to understand how good that feels, and even Bobby says it in his video, I look in the mirror all the time now because I like the way I look. Those things you don't want to give up when you start to get there. But it's very, very hard to know that you're going to get there when you walk in a door and want to make those changes, you know?
Yeah, especially because I think people start to experience unexpected positive results as part of coming here and working out. You know, it's all those like little things that add up that you don't want to give up.
That end up being a whole lot more than the actual what you came in for potentially originally. Well, we're all going to be faced with challenges continuously. We just need to figure out how to still move forward towards your goal among those challenges.
DJ Beeston, closing thoughts?
As far as like motivation, advice?
Free reign to say whatever you want.
I mean, I just speaking from personal experience, like I can attest that it's not easy. There's a lot of obstacles and hardships like along the way.
Is it worth it?
100%, like without a doubt. Like, I mean, not to go like into family too much and stuff like that, but when you live in an environment where health is not at the forefront or nowhere near the forefront and step outside of that circle, and you essentially, you basically become like who you surround yourself with. And when you're with those positive people, and it doesn't have to be like bodybuilders or anything like that, but just people that want to either sustain or improve their health, like day in and day out, like you reap that, like you become that. So when you're not in that, like, it's essentially like a negative circle in a sense. When you're in that, you're like, okay, this is my norm. But as soon as you step out of it, you're like, wow, that's what I was taking part in. Like, that's not what I want to be. That's not who like I want to be with. That's just not the me I envision at age 80, like you were saying.
And I think one last obstacle with that is my friends don't do it. I don't have any friends to go with. Like so-and-so, my boyfriend, my girlfriend is a partier to this. Get new friends. There's your solution.
And you know what, Ryan, too, to that point, I say this a lot, is when you come in, you don't have to have your husband doing it with you and your friend doing it with you, because again, this is your journey. And when you do it and people see how you're doing it and how well you're doing the changes, they're going to want to join your journey.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it's like, it is so important for them, like for anyone listening, to understand that like it's yours. It is your journey. Like no one else is responsible for you. Like your husband, your wife, like they have no bearing on your journey. And it's ridiculous to think that someone else should be responsible for your journey or your health or like, it's up to you. And but it's a cool thing because you have the power to change it. And I think once you understand that and accept it, like that is what's really empowering or invigorating, is that I can go and do all these things now that I've learned to decide. And once you make that decision, everything changes from there on.
Yeah, once you take a step like into that health, like you have like a massive personality shift. Like if you're somewhat of an introvert and you take that step into like improving like your movement or your diet and whatnot, you find yourself like when your friend asks you to go out to, you know, to meet so-and-so, like you're more inclined to say yes. You're not so like reserved or within yourself, like hesitant or insecure. So when you make those changes, you're more likely to like go out to this event or take part in that activity. Like me personally, like there's so many times when I was asked a question to do this or do something in particular, and I'm like, no, I'm okay. I was clearly capable of doing it, but I was so like within myself, super insecure that I would say no all day long.
Yeah. We just talked yesterday to business with a sales team, and I asked them, I said, if everyone on the sales team felt great every day, do you think you'd sell better? Yep. Yeah, that's the same concept. Like if you felt good, you would perform better in whatever you're doing. Doesn't matter, parenting, job, just yourself. It could be anything, sports. But if you felt good, it would be that much more likely for you to perform good or to do better or, you know, just feel better. Your day-to-day basis is going to be much more enjoyable to go through.
Yes. Take that leap.
Is that it? Have we finished? Yeah. We'd like to make these endings awkward.
1, 2, 3. Oh, be strong.
1, 2, 3.
That's the wrap.
Always strong.
That wraps up episode 2 of the Take Back Your Life show, talking about the obstacles and challenges that people face and how to overcome them. stay tuned for next episode where I guess we're talking about medical stuff. So we'll see how that goes. And if there's anything that you want to learn more about, if there's questions that you have and you want to hear us talk on, or anything you're struggling with that we could help you with, just comment down below this video. Let us know. That's what this is for. It's to give you the tools and strategies to make a positive change at home. So if there's anything that we can do to help you make that change, please just let us know.